Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow pre-election week.
I voted.
You voted? Yeah, I was one of the idiots who soiled my ballot, so I have to wait until next week. Anyway, please, we love your questions. Please send those to us. And if you want to know how you spoil a ballot is you use a Sharpie. So it bleeds through to the backs. Yeah, don't.
Yeah.
I'll get it. Yeah, thank you, Katie. Thank you.
The fun part for me, and this is absolutely not political at all, guys. So let's wash our hands from that. But Kanye West was on my presidential ballot. I didn't think he was on there.
There you go. There's a certificate. Please download.
No, I'm not saying I didn't vote for him, but he was on there.
Let's move on. Let's move on to the serious topics of the day. The reason why, first of all, set this up for us, Katie. Why are we asking this question?
So lobby groups, especially some of these trade organizations, are really pushing to get those EIDL advances at least off the balance sheets, maybe even more to try to help small businesses that didn't know that those were going to be deducted from their PPP forgiveness. That's really the big problem right now, both for lenders and for borrowers, because a lot of them didn't know that going into this, that would be a deduction.
Yeah, 3/4.
Wow.
And we're talking what, Lance? We're talking what, $10,000 that's being put on these PPP loans that now all of some borrowers have to come up with?
Well, and initially, Bob, when applications were going out and people were trying to digest and understand, most borrowers had the impression that the PPP loan was forgivable and the EIDL advance loan, the idle advance, was forgivable. They didn't know they would somehow tie those two together.
And now some people, I know some people have said that, hey, we knew about this and we notified our borrowers, but the majority of people saying, hey, it's not really fair. So it's, I really, 75%. Do you have an opinion, Lance? I'm sort of, yeah, it's not.
Bob, I do not think your average PPP borrower, I mean, Bob, they were all looking for help. So they were applying for the idle loan. They were applying for PPP. They didn't realize when they were applying for both and accepted the PPP loan and accepted the idle advance, I would say your average PPP borrower did not know that it's going to be reduced on their forgiveness.
Yeah, and that's an unfortunate side effect, Katie, is when we're dealing with the government program, and this is what we have, and there's always an asterisk, and you're concerned what the asterisk is. Well, we know what one of these asterisks are. Hey, Lance,
Bob,
go ahead.
The other side of the coin, Bob, is banks, financial institutions throughout the country will end up with a significant number of small balance loans that they have to service for either a 2 or a 5 year period.
Since you brought that up, let's talk about that real quick. Let's say we have a worst case scenario. Someone has a small loan, $50,000. They have to take off the idle $10,000. Everything else is forgiven. Logistically, what are the steps that happens after that, Lance?
Well, the bank is going to have to, it's on principal and interest payments for either 2 or 5 years, depending on when they got their PPP loan. So
Thank you.
They'll have to pay it back.
Is prior to what, July? What was that date? Do you remember, Katie?
It's your early April, May PPP loan.
Okay.
It was before the Flexibility Act.
Okay. Well, very good. So who knows what's going to happen? We'll talk about what's going on with Congress, but that is concerning. And we listed all of those trade organizations. Hey, Lance, give a plug for your webinar on Wednesday, and we're going to ask this poll question that dovetails into that.
Well, guys, Wednesday we're going to talk about how to service a non-performing SBA loan, which irregardless of the type of SBA loan, but how to take care of it, what servicing actions that you should take. And majority of the people got this correct. Site visits are performed when a loan, if it's a payment delinquency, 60 days past due. Now, if it's a non-payment delinquency, something like a bankruptcy or lawsuit filed, those have to be performed immediately after notification of that
Lance, give
event.
us the definition of past due. Joseph, can you go back to those poll results? When does the 60 days kick in? Do they kick in on the first of the month or on the last day of the month? When does that 60-day clock start?
Well, I mean, 60 days past due is going to be pending what the payment due date. A lot of
Let's say it's due the
institutions,
first. Let's say it's due October 1st.
if the payment's due October the 1st, you'll have November 1st, December 1st. After December 1st, it'll be 60 days past due.
So we need to have it done by December 1st, correct?
Well, the SOP 5057-2 indicates that you do this once it becomes 60 days past due, then you complete a servicing site visit.
Okay, and how long do we have to do that site visit?
Generally, you've got a lot longer time period to do the site visit than I would recommend.
Right.
I'd be out doing the site visit before it ever hits 60 days, Bob, but you've got 30 days to complete the site visit once it becomes 60 days past due. My recommendation is get in the car and go on the 60th day.
Right. I think and the reason why we're harping on this is because site visits, where do they list in terms of repairs and denials, Lance? Pretty close to the top, correct?
Not doing a proper site visit is real high on the list of repair items. I've shared this story before. This was on a bank that closed, had a Slotsky sandwich shop that was delinquent. They had not done the site visit. When I got the loan, I ran out, Bob, snapping pictures all over the place, even though it was now a Subway, and suddenly a police officer shows up and escorts me off the property.
Sir, what are you doing here?
Apparently, the Slotsky's owner, in the meantime, had sold all his equipment to the Subway owner, and there was a new owner on site. But in that particular case, the entire value of the FF&E was repaired on that loan when we submitted for guarantee
Katie,
purchase.
we may have to reinstitute our Mugshot Monday and go through the Arkansas files for Lance's picture here. I don't know. Finally, we like to ask this question from time to time to get a pulse of what's happening. Where are you working?
I'm going to be interested to see this, Bob, because even in my local area, there's a mixed bag. Some are working at home. Some are in the office.
Wow, I'm shocked at that. I'm shocked at what only 44% are back in the institution full time. I'm shocked by that, Lance. What do you think?
Well, I think there are a lot of institutions that probably are not going to go with all team members on site probably till after the first of the year.
Yeah, and at home full time, and there's a combination of both. All right, Katie, hit us. What's going on in Washington?
So not a whole lot of news, unfortunately, and I think we're probably not going to hear too much until after the elections. However, Mnuchin and Pelosi are talking. They're continuing to discuss things. On Friday, Pelosi sent a letter to Mnuchin listing her concerns about a proposed stimulus package. I don't know the contents of that. I do know that, she wants to try to work something out. She did say that she is optimistic that something might still come of it before the election, but I'm not really hearing that from any other source. So I don't know if there's something going on behind closed doors that we don't know about, but unless there's something happening there, it's really unlikely until after.
Well, the stock market has voted negatively toward all this news. It's down 812 points. So it's we are viewing living history. A lot is going to change this week and obviously next week. So we'll see what happens. Hey, the administrators out there touting PPP, Pinellas County is where, first of all, Florida, if I'm correct?
I'm not sure
It's
about
in Florida. Yeah, it is in Florida, Bob.
Is it?
Yeah, thank you.
We actually have banks in that county.
Okay. Anyway, so go ahead. What are we talking about? What is she talking about, Katie?
She's just continuing to make some site visits at some various locations, trying to encourage small businesses and people who really still need this, that they're still working on trying to get PPP going again. I believe she's gone to some schools and some local community businesses all over the place now. I've heard stories about every other week about her going someplace to try to get an idea of what's going on. And I'm sure she's taking that back to Congress and reporting back what she's hearing so that they can try to pass something so that at least the program can either get continued or they can repurpose those funds or something like that.
I love stats just as much as Lance loves to read SOPs. So we got a cool thing on stats today. Give us some of the highlights, Katie.
So this particular study, what I found interesting is a lot of these borrowers are still waiting on guidance, not just from SBA, but also from lenders. I mean, there's 64% who have not received any proactive communication or aid from their lender on the forgiveness process. They're very confused and they mostly just want to hear what they're supposed to do, if they're supposed to be filling out something or waiting. 8% who reached out to their lender and asked questions said they received an unhelpful response, or sorry, they received a helpful response. So the rest of them are really just, nobody knows what's going on. And I know the lenders don't know what's going on either, but trying to just encourage those small businesses would probably at least lift a little bit off their shoulders and help them out because they're really confused and scared right now.
Katie, who put together this study?
This particular study was Fundera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which they have some great stats. They've been collecting data for a while on these kinds of things, mostly on the borrower side, but right now they are looking at, especially at the forgiveness process and how that's affecting borrowers right now.
We're not putting up this chart to shame anybody. We're putting up the chart just to let people know what's happening out there.
Right.
So the last line, Lance, is pretty telling. 90% of those who have applied for forgiveness have not received a forgiveness decision from the lender, which is really /SBA. So I know the wheels are churning. We've received some. What were the numbers, Katie? I know we're getting a lot under 50, but we're getting a couple over 100,000, correct?
We did get a few last week. There were a few lenders who said they had over 100,000. Maybe we need to ask that again this week and see, because the numbers do keep jumping up, maybe about 10% every time we ask those kinds of questions. So I would expect we're maybe close to 20% now, but we haven't asked the question recently.
FDIC continues to pick off low-hanging fruit. Fourth bank closed this year, which isn't, it's obviously upsetting and tragic for the local community as well as the employees of that community bank. But 4 banks, I don't have the stats, compare that for 10 years ago, but 4 banks does not seem unreasonable, Lance.
Well, I think we probably will see more activity in bank closures. It's pretty natural, Bob. I'm not trying to predict gloom and doom, but during every
2008, yeah.
During every recession or every economic, this is more an economic adjustment / recession, but during every one there are bank closures. So I think these are the first 4, and there'll be more. I didn't know, Bob, there was still a $65 million bank out there.
Well, I didn't want to pick on poor Almana. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but the break-even operating a bank these days has to be probably a little bit more higher in assets than what this small community bank has. We talked about the webinars. Let's see, we got the question from Emily, and she had that. Let's see, we got 3 quick questions. Let's go to them real quick. Please explain. Lance said that PPP loans will be past due after the 24-week period. Is this accurate if a lender could still defer for another 10 months? Russell.
Oh, so hey, He's asking if they can defer
After the
after the 10-month deferment period.
No, here's the situation. We have a PPP loan we have the 24 weeks go, and now let's say we have a balance. Can we do a deferment on top of that balance? Defer principal.
So they have submitted for forgiveness,
Correct.
I would assume, and there's a balance remaining. Guys, right now, I would certainly email that PPP questions email box with that. My assumption is the 50-57-2 is what will govern servicing of those balances that are left over on the PPP loans. And I would assume potentially you could provide a deferment on that.
Tamara says,
Bob, we've not been given any guidance on servicing. So, I mean, I have to make the assumption that the current servicing and liquidation SOP is what will govern servicing on those.
Tamara says, hey, most of our PPP forgiveness had used up all their PPP funds. They've also used up the idle advance. More of an editorial comment, quote, it would be great if the borrower can demonstrate using both for eligible proceeds, and then there's no deduction. That's, I think you're in with that 75%, Tamara, on what we would like
Absolutely.
to happen. Katie's putting together our top 10 things you need to know for your C-suite and your board of directors, and we will be issuing that on next. Are we going to wait till after the election, or are we going to do it before the election, Katie?
I think we can do either way. There's plenty of information, but it would be nice. I don't know if we're going to hear anything right after the election, so it might end up being next week.
Let me think about that. Anyway, it's going to go out. We like to publish on the 1st, so we'll figure out what we're going to do with that from that. Lance, I know you're busy. Thank you for your time. Katie, thank you. Good job. And thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Talk to you tomorrow.
Have a great afternoon.